Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, today we've got a special video for you. We're going to be doing another self-reliance video on my little 3-day bag, and I've got a special guest here with me today, Ivan from Kit Badger. Thanks for showing up, hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you brought the battle wagon with you. Really cool.
Entire bus.
That's right. We're going to talk about that in a future episode. We are going to be going through this go bag. I thought it'd be a lot of fun for him to assess my readiness. We'll get into that. I definitely want to take a moment to thank our friends at SimpliSafe. They've got some great total home monitoring solutions. Their security systems are wonderful. It comes in a really convenient package, super easy to install. It took us less than 30 minutes to install the entire system in my home. Video monitoring, you can add all the different cameras you want and monitor them from your cell phone, which is really, really handy. When you're out on the go, you can check in on your house. If someone breaks in your home, sets off a motion detector, glass break sensor, something like that, it calls the police for you. So again, a total home monitoring system, really, really handy. Check them out. They're super easy to work with. You can add whatever you need to the system as you need it, so you can piece it together for your exact needs. Go to simplisafe.com/IV8888. Check them out. Tell them we sent you. All right, so in regards to this video, so Brandy and I have been putting together various bags and kits for different situations, okay? And there's a lot of different ways when we view self-reliance in terms of this whole bug out idea. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's a real thing, right? And there's a lot of different ways that one can go about that, right? Some people might want to have a self-sufficiency in place for like maybe just some basic food and hydration needs for 2 or 3 days or something. So that's sort of my goal here with this particular pack, and maybe some basic sanitation, things like that. So he doesn't know what's in this bag. We're going to go through these items and break them out. And then Ivan here, he is way, way more qualified in regards to this stuff than I am. Like, he does this stuff all the time. You're doing overlanding, you're going hiking and camping, doing your thing. I mean, you're always out in nature.
Spend a lot of time out there. One of the things to consider, and you touched on as far as the mission for this, because it's a huge spectrum, because it's like, oh, you know what? I need everything I need for the next 3 days. Well, chances are you can't carry that, period. So what holes are you trying to fill? Mm-hmm. And what is the scope of the mission that this is going to fill? And then to that end, does it fill it or not? Because you can't end up with everything you will need for unforeseen everything. It's like, oh, I'm going to bug out forever. Nah.
Right. So there definitely is a time frame that you have to kind of associate with the equipment that you're packing out. I mean, everyone would love to pack 50 pounds of gear and go and have every little thing and have basically a house on their back, and sometimes that's not practical. This bag, my overall thought process for this, just before we start cracking into it, I wanted something to keep in my vehicle so that, a roadside issue, or you get stranded somewhere for a day or two or something like that, and you just need to know that you've got some good basic necessities right here. And I'm actually not done with this bag. There's still a few things I want to add, but you said something to me earlier that resonated, that a go bag is never really done. You're always constantly sort of evolving with
especially depending on where you are, geographically. I mean, I will be up there in the summer, and we'll get a week or two of 100 degrees, 90-ish, something like that. And in the winter, it'll drop down maybe a couple weeks to single digits. So
wow.
Whatever you had going for summertime, that's probably not what you want during the wintertime. And so part of it is going to be situationally dependent, obviously, on weather, time of year, things along those lines. And then also, if you talk to people, they'll have different things for going different places. So if you decide you were going to go on a hunting trip up in Michigan, this might change. Who knows? And to the end of this continually evolving, no one is static. If you continue in any discipline, you're constantly learning, constantly figuring out better ways to do things. And so to that end, everything is continually evolving. Otherwise, you would just go down to Walmart and buy the bug out bag.
Right.
And that's not a thing, because people have different necessities as far as what they might need for where they are. And as you get more proficient with things, maybe you'll add something that think about it with blowout kits. It's like, oh, cool, we have a decompression needle. That's awesome. Have you ever used one? Like, do you know where to find to basically dart someone if that's necessary? And if you don't, then it's useless. But if you were to start your first aid kit with Band-Aids and some aspirin, like...
Safe to say we know how to use that.
Yeah, like that's a good place to start. But then as your knowledge increases, like you expand that out. And same goes for these bags.
In the case of the blowout kit, as you mentioned, you know, a certain piece of gear that you're not, you know, trained on how to use it correctly, you actually create a liability. You make a problem that is very bad even worse by not applying the correct solution to the problem. So, and again, to sort of reiterate what you said about hunting bags, yeah, a hunting bag or a tip bag from Hill People or something like that you wear on your chest, that what the needs of that bag might be very different depending on the environment where you are. I mean, maybe you're in a mosquito-infested, you know, swamp and you need lots of DEET. Well, yeah, obviously you want to make sure you have that. So for the purposes of this one, I'm going to just start pulling things out. Yeah. And bear in mind, we're not done with this, but I want to get your opinion. And you were passing through. So tell us where you're headed. You're going down to Florida.
Going down to Florida, about to wrap up coast-to-coast trip. Started over on the West Coast, and basically a series of range days to kind of celebrate freedom, give people a chance to shoot some guns they maybe otherwise hadn't shot. And ultimately it's a group of a lot of like-minded people, which is always refreshing.
Very good.
Be able to like resonate, like thoughts on freedom, stuff like that. And
good.
Wrapping up our tour down in Florida.
Well, really appreciate you swinging by. So all right, we're going to get into this. I know, all right, we'll just start pulling stuff out. Either you can or I can, doesn't matter. This particular bag, this is just an extra bag that my wife had laying around that we got. You know, we do business with 4imprint, and we just had this extra bag. I thought these pockets were nice to put some beverages in. I like Pedialyte.
Pedialyte's awesome. And a quick note on bags too. People get married to, I need this bag, like this is going to make it better. And it might, but whatever bag you have is going to be more valuable than whatever one you don't have at this point in time. So like get started with whatever you have.
Agreed. You know, like we all love the high-speed Vertex stuff, and I have Vertex bags, but don't think that you have to get the latest and greatest. I mean, this is literally like a $10 backpack. It doesn't cost a lot of money.
And with that too, especially if you're carrying guns and ammo and stuff like that, no matter how gray man someone makes something, people in the know immediately recognize it. Oh, like, cool, there's your low pro gun bag.
This could be anything. And that's
could literally be anything. Pedialyte is huge. Hydration, man. And even if you're in a bad way, this will at least jumpstart you with respect to, being able to hopefully stay hydrated for longer. And on top of that, being able to have some sort of container. So if you get water bottles, usually the plastic the water bottles are made of, like you can crinkle them because they're really thin. So if you have something like this, or for that matter, not that you'd want it for this, but like carbonated beverages, really strong because they're carbonated beverages. So you can continue to use them over and over. Just like these will hold up way longer as like supplementary water bottles as opposed to just some random water bottles thrown in your pack.
My wife and I had a disagreement about it. So we set up two of these bags identically. And Brandy was like, well, why do you want the Pedialyte? That's extra weight to have to carry. And I explained to her, well, you got your life straw. This is goes on to our next item. So this life straw is super useful. I think everybody should have a life straw bottle. So you could fill this up with water, and you could even, cut it a little bit. That's the way I like to drink Pedialyte and Gatorade, is I'll cut a bit and add a bunch of water to it and getting a little bit of those electrolytes in with your normal water intake. And of course, life straws are great. You can pour some relatively nasty water in this thing and get drinkable water out of it.
Dehydration, like it kills people. Like, not to mention that, but whether it's dehydration or people, well, it's still dehydration, because you'll drink bad water and then you'll continue to get dehydrated when you end up with diarrhea and everything like that. So a means of water purification is huge. It really depends on what you want to do. These are really handy because if you ever have like just the regular like life straw, one, it really gets old really fast trying to like bend over a stream or pull a water or something like that. Or if you end up scooping up your water in something like this and then bring your life straw into it, it's cool, it's handy, but now you've contaminated this as well, which that will get contaminated, but you get to continually drink out of it, which is handy.
Yeah, and I haven't actually really tried it, but I guess with this Life Straw nozzle, you do have to kind of like pull the water through.
You do.
It doesn't just drip out.
No, and double-edged sword. So again, like where is this going to fit in for you? Like you already obviously have like a jump start on hydration with this, which is huge. And then you can continually fill these up. These are great for being able to refill, but with the Life Straw, being able to get purified water into there probably isn't going to be a thing. But you can shore that up actually with, you go get eyedropper bottles from dollar store and then just empty them out, and then you fill them with bleach. And now you have a ready means of, like, you can go look. I'm not going to tell you because someone will correct me on the internet as far as like, oh, your proportion's wrong. But at the end of the day, you can basically purify water with chlorine, which is what bleach is. And you can fill up one of those droppers. Ideally, do your best job of getting clean water in here to begin with, but then you can throw bleach in there.
All right, so I'm just going to start randomly pulling stuff out.
see 'em.
No order. This is just grab and go here. All right.
Yeah, continuing with hydration.
100%. You can go a long time without food if you have to.
Yeah.
You know, the human body is very resilient, but hydration is super, super, super important. You've got to stay hydrated. And so extra electrolytes, you know, with these drink packets, liquid IV, I'm kind of big on these. I'm curious to know what you think.
I actually haven't, drip drops, awesome. Haven't used these. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's a porta wipe. Okay, so in case you don't know, so these little guys are really interesting. I recently discovered these, and I think you can see that we have two sizes. We're getting to that. But on this particular one, you just literally add a little bit of water. It doesn't even have to be clean water, and it'll expand into a relatively tough and relatively reusable cloth.
That's awesome.
You use it for basic, hygiene or gun cleaning, anything you want, really. Sometimes if you're in a crappy situation, sometimes a little comfort item's nice to have. And I figure if I am going to devote a portion of this limited space to a comfort item, I might as well make it something that is super compact and doesn't take up a lot of space.
And because you would take up way more space using like toilet paper or something like that in there versus these right there.
I didn't even consider, didn't even think of that. That's great. Yeah, you could totally wipe with that. Just poke a hole in the middle and do it old school. Anyway. All right. And of course, a little Neosporin tube.
Always handy.
And again, this isn't complete sunscreen.
That's huge. I mean, this is one of those, like, as an adult, I get angry with myself when I get sunburnt. I'm like, nope, you're over 40, like, you should know better. And being sunburnt just makes everything more miserable. And yeah, like, in a bad situation, the last thing you want to do is be sunburnt. And it also helps too with just, like, you can use it almost like lotion too, because if you're in a bad spot too, like just getting things where, especially if your hands start drying out, getting cracked or anything. Again, environmentally dependent, but sunscreen's awesome.
And you could probably even make this work like a basic chapstick too. If your lips are dried out real bad, you could use a little bit of this to help with that. Probably. I think sunscreen's important, and again, it's a little comfort item, not necessarily, it's like not life and death. But it's a small container. I figure that'd be cool to put in the bag.
So here's the other thing with like a bug out bag, where this could be just a backpack full of ammo because it's like, oh, everything's gonna go wrong. Okay, well, a lot of times things don't go wrong. So what you actually need is some sunscreen, because you just might be you might be broken down on the side of the road, and what you actually need is some sunscreen and a way to stay hydrated, and maybe you need to go to the bathroom and you essentially need toilet. Like, on a certain level, this needs to be pragmatic, because it's like the idea of like, oh, well, I'm gonna build a nuclear fallout shelter because that's the best way to go. great idea. Or you could just actually have maybe slowly squirrel away basically a month's worth of rent and utilities and food, because the chance of nuclear war is probably pretty slim. But as we've seen in 2020, the chance of you maybe losing your job and having a transition, like that's a lot more real. So that would be a more pragmatic approach. And I would encourage you to, be pragmatic with bags like this.
You know, that's a really good point that you bring up, because there is a sort of romanticized aspect of go bags where people think that they're going to be, running into the zombie apocalypse. But the slightly more boring and reality of it is that you're likely going to be, spending 2 hours fixing your car on the side of the road in the heat, and might have to go, like you said, might have to go to the bathroom. All right, we'll get into my favorite thing. Y'all know I like food, so we got some food items. I'm a fan of Cliff Bars, my man.
Yeah. And these are small enough too to where if you're really hungry, you can eat a bunch of them. But if you open one, sometimes, like with MREs, for example, if you open a meal in MRE, like I hope you're ready to eat that meal, because it's not going to last like once you crack that seal.
And really, if you think about it, MRE takes up a lot of room.
Takes up a ton of space.
I think the more effective way, and I think my overall idea for this, and I haven't done yet, but I think I'm going to, is to get individual MRE entrees and pack them into stuff like this, like a bag or something, and condense it into like kind of little custom mini MREs.
The other thing that is really handy is this is obviously, it's packed into a Ziploc bag. This is awesome because you can fill it up and you have your life straw, you can purify it drinking through there. Where this is not awesome is when you have basically a puddle that is like ground level or something like that. And so trying to like dig it out or push this down and then get this completely gross. Whereas you can basically, you can use a bag for a million things, to include collecting water from somewhere where it wouldn't be practical to take like a rigid plastic bottle, or you just wouldn't want to put it because maybe you have some like initial filtration, whether it's a piece of, actually probably one of these guys or something, just even stretched over the top, kind of dip it down inside there. So you can fill this up with some probably pretty nasty water and pour it with this down in there, and you can pull it up and get rid of like large particulates, because once this gets completely full of debris, like it's going to be really difficult to drink through, and it's probably not going to work as well. So just having plastic bags and things put into other bags, incredibly valuable.
I think the likelihood of dying from dehydration is something that is, you definitely have to deal with that immediately. Getting dysentery or getting a stomach bug or something after the fact, they can treat that once you're back to civilization or once you're back to safety. I mean, but the initial need of hydration,
to be able to drink,
is super important. I mean, I hate to say it, but even if you had to drink dirty water, it would almost be better than no water. I mean, dying of what are you going to die from sooner, a stomach bug or dehydration?
Yeah.
But I know those are cause and effect things, because them being sick will make you vomit possibly, and then vomiting, you're losing even more water than you would probably lose just from natural perspiration anyway. So it's a risk that you have to take. But this negates that risk considerably.
Absolutely.
All right. Of course, we got tons of food. I got a few just generic water bottles.
All right. See what I mean as far as just like the material?
Yeah.
Like these are great. They're cheap. And then conversely, these though, you can continue to refill and reuse. And you could even, like I said, you can make like at least a very like rudimentary filter over it with some of those cloths too.
Before we go too further, I did pull the large porta wipes out of the bag. Now these, when they expand, they're this big.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's like a shop towel.
It is, and it's tough. I mean, you can wipe your hands with it. So this is great if you're on the side of the road and you got grease all over your dang hands because you had to fix something, and not have to ruin a shirt or grab a paper towel or something. You can just take this out and clean up. Or like monkey baths. I mean, personal hygiene's a thing. I mean, obviously, if you're stranded somewhere for a few days and you don't have running water or shower, you can definitely take a little monkey bath. Get cleaned up.
And going back to the idea of like, why is this here? Like, more often than not, people are going to get stranded on the side of the road waiting for like help, then they're going to have to like fight their way out of some urban jungle or something like that.
Agreed.
And going back to being pragmatic, even though it's not sexy, like pragmatic.
I mean, imagine taking a bunch of hand towels and rolling them up and trying to put them in this bag. This is a very efficient use of space. And that was my mindset here, is to try to keep, the chances that I might need this might be slim, but I can justify having this in here because of its lightweight and its compact size. And again, that was my thinking here. Again,
And I mean, even going back to just toilet paper too.
oh God, yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
This versus like a half a roll or whatever.
There's another one. So I carried extras. I put 3 in each bag. All right. And then really just honestly, I don't think there's any real tools like knives or fire making in here, but we're kind of down to like snacks, pistachios. We're just going to break all this out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like diversifying the food in a way that gives you a complex carbohydrates is kind of what I was thinking. Like carbs are pretty much instant food, so high carb items is what I'm thinking. Especially, you're not concerned about living in the axiom of health for 3 days or eating a steak dinner for 3 days. You're talking about getting instant energy and staying hydrated and surviving for 3 days. Being uncomfortable for 3 days. Peanuts, super useful. Jerky. Who doesn't love jerky? Got a bunch of jerky. Tons of jerky.
Yeah.
Probably more than I need, but you know what? Hey, I love jerky. I got all these random, again, kind of in the same vein of Cliff Bars. Tons of energy. Let's look at the nutritional content. That's 260 calories. And honestly, I didn't go through all this food and determine the amount of total caloric intake for all this food in total. So if you're under a lot of stress, and you're in a stressful environment, you're exerting a lot of energy, you're sweating a lot, you're drinking a lot of water, you're out in the sun, you're going to use more energy. And your average person would consume roughly 2,000 calories in an average day, and that's when just things are average. Now, if you're exerting more energy, you need more calories to, I don't know. But I think total, without thinking too hard, I mean, there's 6,000 calories in this bag.
Probably. So
And then a big old thing of crackers.
nice.
Because I love these suckers.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's
8 of them.
Yeah, so, that's 1,600 calories alone right there, just in the crackers.
And so, with respect to food, like it's easy to be cavalier and be like, okay, well, I can do without food easily for 30 days or whatever. So I'm gonna focus on other things. True, yes, you could, but at the end of the day, if you're in a stressful situation, probably not getting tons of sleep, and without food, whether you appreciate it or not, like your judgment will lapse. Like you will make poor choices. And I mean, military training is predicated on misery, like sleep deprivation, food deprivation.
Yeah.
Because it forces you into situations where your judgment ends up completely lapsing or somewhat lapsing. And so it's like stress inoculation to a certain point. And then also being able to essentially find your threshold of like where you need to be. And the clarity that will come with actually being able to sit down and eat something, to include something like this. I mean, it'd be really easy to be like, oh no, I'm gonna get some survival rations that are like a brick of like 500 calories. It is not satisfying. And again, this isn't like a bomb just dropped. Like this is like, okay, well, I'm either in a situation where I need to maintain where I am until help can come to me, or I just need to get to help. And the ability to sit down and have a snack and be like, oh, you know what? Like that was pretty good. Honestly, chocolate, stuff like that. There's I can't remember the name of it. It comes in this round metal tin, and it was actually given out like during World War II. I want to say it actually had cocaine in it, and it's like,
oh wow,
it's like super rich, dark chocolate, like really high caffeine, and yeah, it was given out as a stimulant because it was like, hey, like you guys are about to go into a bad way. Like here you go. It was given out, I want to say, to the German troops over in the Axis side. Yeah. But no, stuff like chocolate, also calorically dense, and like it's comfort food for a lot of people. when this comes out, you're not in a good way. So if you have something, you're like, oh man, like I love crackers. Like, cool. Like,
Of course.
Take 5, sit down, eat crackers, like collect your thoughts and make a good choice moving forward rather than just being, hey, hunger is gnawing at me and end up making poor choices in an already bad situation.
I agree. And I think the way that I was approaching this was from a comfort standpoint. Now, one thing I will mention, this bag is not finished, and I know it wasn't finished, but when I had him here, I wanted to discuss this. I don't have any like fire making stuff. I don't have cutlery. I don't have, 550 cord. I don't have survival blankets and things like that. Generally, the way I approach that is my truck, I'll keep usually like a small bin. Sometimes Walmart will sell like this fleece blankets for like $5. And they're relatively disposable for $5, right? And I'll keep like 3 or 4, maybe 5 of those fleece blankets. So I kind of do that just in case, you need a little comfort there, warm. Or you can, they double for towels too if you need to dry. I mean, it's just a ton of things that having a fleece blanket is good for. And then in that type of little bin, I may put a few extras. But I really wanted this to just primarily be a little bit of food and water and be able to, some comfort items when you're out on the road. And again, as Ivan said, this can go a lot of different directions, but I feel like comfort food is important. You're going through a bad situation. I know you guys have seen those commercials where it's like the Snickers commercials where they show some drama going on and they go, you're not being yourself, you're not yourself here. And then it says, well, when you're hungry, you're not yourself, something like that.
Yeah, you get hangry.
You get hangry, right. And that is a real thing. And your judgment starts to lapse. And sometimes, you're too busy to eat a meal. Sometimes just a, handful of beef jerky and some crackers and Cliff Bar and a good couple of bottles of water and a half a Pedialyte, and you can push on.
Completely change your mindset. And the other thing to keep in mind with this stuff, like you said, you didn't have fire making or this or that, is basically complementing like everyday carry stuff. So I don't know if you're familiar with these guys. This is Northman by Amtech Blades. It's pretty rad. It's an awesome knife. But then built into the sheath also is basically a ferro rod. So you can end up, I won't catch anything on fire probably, but something that basically like serves more than one purpose. But again, going back to like everyday carry, like what do you already have like a lighter in your pocket or something like that? I mean, if not, then obviously, and redundancy is great if you have an extra one in there, but like same with knives. The idea that you're going to kit something completely out with everything so that like you could pick it up, be naked, like not totally realistic, because chances are if you are like already in that preparedness mindset on a fundamental level, you'll already have like all your everyday carry stuff with you to begin with.
Right. And maybe in the back of my mind, that was sort of an ongoing thought that I had, because I think the way that I was sort of approaching this with Brandy is I'm like, hey, well, the idea is I can take, my battle belt and put it on. I've got an M17 and a couple of mags, a few extra AR mags that stay on my battle belt, a good blowout kit, 2 tourniquets, some good EMT shears from Leatherman, that sort of thing, multi-tool that I keep on my battle belt. So in an emergency situation, in literally a minute's time, I can slip my battle belt on, grab my rifle, pick up this pack, and I don't know what we're doing. I don't know where we're going. I don't know why we're doing it, but for the immediate 72-hour regimen, I think that I can generally not die. That's the plan. And if a problem can work itself out within 72 hours, then chances are, at least the hope is that possibly you can get back to some form of normalcy and then kind of regroup a bit mentally and from a standpoint of supply. I mean, this stuff will run out, of course, but I think that was my general plan, and maybe having this just stay in each vehicle. So that no matter what, okay, so maybe it's not a run out the door and it's the end of the world scenario. It's just a simple scenario like you've got a toddler in the car with you. I'm hungry. Can we stop? Or, hey, I want a snack.
Which is probably going to happen more often than not. Mm-hmm. Like having kids around, they're like, oh, like I'm starving or I'm thirsty, whatever it may be. Or I need to go to the bathroom at an inopportune time.
Correct.
Like, those are... We decided to stop for an extended period and we're not planning on it. Like, boom, sunscreen, like all of those practical things. The other things I do like to put in here, just because it's kind of a catch-all when there's unknowns, is, I'll tell you, they're horrible, but they're great for what they are, is space blankets. in that you can use them to like fashion a shelter or whatever, or even just keep rain off of whether it's you or equipment. You can drape them over stuff like that.
Or you're on the side of the road trying to fix something and you're getting pissed on. You might maybe make a temporary shelter so you can work, you know?
And again, it goes back to where you are though, because for me, when I think about having stuff like this, which I have been, like stranded out on basically some logging road, like ended up getting stuck or something like that in snow. So the ability to keep warm, that's huge. Those are good for that. Or, I mean, the idea of like all this right here might even not necessarily be for you. You might pull off on the side of the road because someone is broken down and you want to help them, and they have zero water and it's like 100 degrees, 100% humidity. And it's like, oh man, like here, like drink this. Like I'm going to do you a favor because you're in a bad way.
Yep.
Or for that matter, like have a snack. Like other people around you that have planned poorly. And just keep a pragmatic approach when you go. And also explain to yourself your mission statement for what it is, without going down the rabbit hole of like, oh, cool, I'm going to be the lone wolf. No, you're not. Like, survival's a team sport, guys.
It most certainly is. I mean, from the dawn of time, and since men have been able to hang out with each other and tolerate each other, from the first man that decided to throw a stick at an animal and kill it, and then realize, well, wait a minute, we're more effective when there's 5 or 6 of us. That's how it started. You know, we realized that we could kill better together, and it's been downhill ever since, right? But that's how it works. You know, teamwork is important. And I agree that the water, I know, is not a ton of physical water and hydration I have in the pack. I generally keep like a case of water in my truck. So this can supplement something that you already happen to be doing. So I think it's just important to sort of have the mindset of you never know, and you just need to grab one bag that has some essentials that can sort of adhere to one given situation without going down the rabbit hole. And I don't want to do that in this video. This will be a separate video. Is talking about more of a military style 3-day bag where, you know, maybe you want to carry some extra socks, underwear. You want to, you know, you might be responsible for more armaments and extra magazines, ammunition, obviously batteries and other things for your, like your optics and devices and other things that you need to support your gear, more support gear oriented. You certainly will get into that. That's not what this was really meant to be. So I agree with you. I'm going to add a space blanket to this. I'm going to add a survival knife with a fire starter on it. That would be great. And I'll probably add like maybe a small handsaw. You know, those things don't take up a lot of room. They're not heavy. I'm going to add a small handsaw, probably a roll of 550 cord, and I'm going to get one of those small life straws as well, just to have the flexibility.
Yeah, because then you can fill up your other water containers and drink out of those as well. The other thing, when it comes to medical, there's a lot that you can do with knowledge as far as without really having much, like direct pressure. One thing that is handy is tourniquets, because when that's the solution, it's kind of the only solution. And outside of that, you run into stuff where it's like, okay, direct pressure, or maybe I'm going to start trying to pack a wound with these, like something better than nothing usually. But
I was going to say, like, I wonder what would happen if you stuffed one of these pucks in a wound.
Yeah. No, I'm live tissue lab. Let's do it.
I'm going to have to ask Dietrich, Skinny Medic. If you guys don't follow him, make sure you follow him. Anyway.
Yeah. No, some sort of medical is good. And the easiest thing is a tourniquet, because when that's the solution, it's kind of the only solution. And hemorrhaging is a big problem. Like if that's what is happening right then and there. And again, not necessarily for you. Like, be pragmatic with it. Like I said, the first time this will probably be used is just helping out someone on the side of the road, or maybe you end up going and meet up with friends, going fishing or something like that, and someone didn't have sunscreen, or someone forgot to bring toilet paper, or someone is starting to get dehydrated.
I know it's not exactly a romanticized view of what this is meant to do, but it's the realistic view. I'll mention, so I was passing through town, and this was a couple of years ago. I'll just very quickly tell you a story. It completely backs up what Ivan is saying here. And of course, I keep a lot of those little like $5 fleece blankets in my vehicle all the time, 100%. passed by in town, and there was a wreck in the middle of the street, and it happened not too long ago, like maybe not even 30 seconds or a minute before we pulled through. And this young lady was out there in her PJs, and of course she did not dress, didn't really dress to go into town. I guess she just thought she was going to take a quick run. Well, it was 30 degrees outside. It was nice, cold, right? And she's out there in a t-shirt and pajama bottoms and slippers. So obviously just trying to make a quick run. And I stopped by and I gave her 2 or 3 of those blankets. I said, here, wrap up, keep yourself warm. And she thought that I was the patron saint of all that is holy, just for giving her, some blankets, some $5 blankets. Yeah. It's amazing what a minor gesture can do to make someone's life a little bit better, and it's worth it to me. She's like, well, what can I give you for these blankets? Don't worry about it. Because I know in my heart that if I needed something, someone would help me. And I'm not saying you do good things because you think something good's going to happen to you, but karma is a thing. And I believe strongly in trying to help people. And my stepson, he's totally like that. He could be on the way to work, and if someone's broke down on the side of the road, especially if they're elderly, he has a soft spot for elderly folks. He will always stop by and ask if they need help. 100%, every single time, no matter what he's doing. And I think that we have to, as a society, I believe it's our duty to look out for other people. So to back up again, as you said, Ivan, that it's not this lone wolf thing that people tend to throw around. And I know that's a romanticized view, maybe to some, but I feel like more of a outreach, an ambassadorship of preparedness is more important than just keeping it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's no sweat off your back, and if it doesn't affect your survivability, then absolutely, share away and do what you can. Because I guarantee you, that lady, all right, that got those blankets, she probably now keeps blankets in her vehicle, and I guarantee you, she probably thinks, you know what, next time at Walmart, I'll grab some blankets. And now she may be thinking a little more towards that, and maybe she will help someone one day.
Yeah, pay it forward.
You pay it forward, 100%.
No, there is enough decisiveness in the world right now. Don't need any more of that. Help people out where you can. One thing that is important too with bags like this is, again, keeping that pragmatic approach where it's like, oh man, you look dehydrated here, drink this. I insist. Keep track of what's in here, and if you use things, replace them. And that's twofold. So one, by replacing them and keeping track of what's in there, when you need it, it's there. So it's not, because sometimes it's break glass in case of emergency. I don't want to use that. I don't want to use it. And then you're miserable because you didn't just break out some snacks because you're like, oh, those are emergency. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
No, use them. It's fine. But just immediately replace them. That way, if you need them, they are there for you. And the other thing, keeping track of what's in here is, MacGyver could probably make a bomb out of this. There's a lot that you can do with things.
I have to go back and watch MacGyver now, thanks.
Right. There's a lot that you can do with things that you have on hand. And what happens sometimes, going back to the idea of mental clarity when you're in a bad spot, especially if you haven't eaten, if you start getting dehydrated, start making poor choices, well, hopefully we won't do that because we have what we have here. And if you have a list of everything that's in here and you're like, oh man, you know what? I actually have a fire starter in here. I just remember, knowing what you have to work with is massive, because then it gives you all of your options on the table when you have to start kind of thinking through whatever situation you're in to get yourself in a better situation.
Oh, that's great advice. And I'll tell you as well, I feel that if you're going to be in a group of people, if you are able to do this, it may not always be practical, and I know everyone's needs are different. I do feel that within a group of people, if you're going to have bags, it's probably important to keep your bags outfitted as closely to each other as possible. So that if someone inadvertently grabs the wrong bag, the location of the items will be as close to each other's bags as possible. And that just cuts down on time. If there's some emergency and you've got to reach for an important piece of gear, try to uniformly outfit your bags in a way that, and that kind of, I guess in our military units, that's the way we try to do things, so that everyone is sort of uniform, and it makes it a little easier to know that if you just grab any random bag, that it's going to be pretty close to where your bag is set up, and you kind of agree upon that a little bit.
That is awesome, and it can also be really hard to do. with depending on
I'm not
who you're
suggesting
with.
it's easy.
But I like that. The other thing that is good, and it goes back to the idea of like, hey, this is like the log of what I have, is like if I end up going backpacking or going out on like these extended adventures with buddies, kind of like a little bag drag at first, or even overseas, like working overseas, doing contract stuff, start working with new people, and it's like, okay, cool, like, yeah, that there, okay, cool. Like, hey, I have like this tourniquet, it's in this pocket, and basically familiarizing everyone that you're with the gear. So again, it comes back to the idea of we know where important things are, whether they're medical devices or something like that. And it gives people the opportunity like, oh, hey, have you used like this before? Like here, quick, like hip pocket class. If you need to use this, this is how this works. Or
precisely,
hey, here's where the spare batteries are. Like, hey, here's where this radio is. We're using these frequencies right here. Here's the card with it. Stuff along those lines. So everyone has an idea of what we have available for whatever like outing, adventure, mission we happen to be on.
Oh man, 100%. I mean, I think it's super important to definitely know where everyone's essential medical are on their person, especially if someone wears a tourniquet or an ankle med kit. Being able to identify where those assets are is certainly important. Dude, thanks so much for this video. I know you're, dude, if you guys are not following him, especially on Instagram too, but his YouTube channel, go to Kit Badger, follow him on YouTube, but definitely follow him on Instagram as well. Some of the adventures that he's out on all the time are really inspiring, and I've always appreciated his approach to it. And he gets his family involved, his kids involved, and I think it's so cool that as a father that he's doing really rad things with his kids. And I think it's important from a cultural standpoint that we're passing along those really important values on to the younger generation. And I think it's so cool that you're not shy about it, and you get your kids involved and your friends and family in it, and it's cool. You know, you go on a lot of adventures and you share the struggles, and I think that's important. It's a good learning experience for people, so definitely follow him. And dude, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Heck yeah. Guys, make sure that you are tuning in to all the stuff we're doing. Follow all of us for sure on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. So all of our social media accounts, we're always posting all kind of fun stuff. I'm sure I can speak for Ivan. He's got other things going on too. So follow him on social media. Thank you guys so much for the support. Those of you who purchased t-shirts over on Ballistic Ink, thank you so much for the support. All of our Patreon supporters, thank you so much for being a part of this video. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you guys soon. Have a good one.